Hi, I'm Chuck Dorsett for Weaver Leather Supply. Let's make some axe handles. Now, the reason I say handles is this. We're going to break this up into two parts. First up, a simple utility handle. Second up, let's decorate a handle. See what we can come up with. Now, we're going with axe, but this handle is going to work just as well on walking sticks, hammers, tools, anywhere we need comfort, durability, and grip. All right, so anything I use in this video, weaverleathersupply.com or check below. We've got links there. Going to take you straight to the website. Also, if you want to know when our videos release, just click your notifications. You'll know exactly when these come out. So let's step over here, get started. So with our two axes, we're going to go with a utility handle and a decorative handle. Yeah, can't wait for that one. But let's start right here. This is my absolute favorite camp axe. Love it. Here's the problem, and a great example. Recent camp out. It was raining and it was cold. Yeah, we can really pick them, right? Anyway, I had gloves on. They were wet. It's a camp out. They're probably muddy. I could not hold on to this axe to save my life. Very frustrating. Now, I love the gloss on the haft. Nice presentation, but it didn't work for me when I needed it the most. So let's correct that. In fact, we're going to do a couple of things that are going to help us out here. So this is the handle we're going to go with. Okay, first off, lime green suede. Boy, that's an obnoxious color. Actually, that's the point. I've almost left this at campsites because it's the same color as the stump or the tree it's leaning against. Don't want to lose this. So let's go with our lime green suede. Secondly, we're going to add some ribbing in here. Super easy to do, but a very cool technique. We can go all kinds of ways with the creativity here. And we're going to use a saddler stitch for a specific reason, and we'll talk about that. But to measure for our handle, this can be the biggest problem. Okay, circumference. Easy to figure out on a circle. On an oval, evidently not the case. So let's make it easy on ourselves. Let's take a piece of leather, roughly the same thickness as the leather we're going to use. I'm just going to go with some veg tan here because this isn't really going to stretch on me. I'm going to get an accurate measurement. So let's take this. Let's just wrap this around our handle and pull that tight. There we go. Okay, with my knife, let's just mark that. There we go. The camera won't see that, but I can. And let's just cut that. Okay, there we go. Easy enough to figure out our circumference. Let's double check that. Look at that. Absolutely perfect. That's what we need. So now let's measure this. We're right at 4 inches, okay? Now with our suede, that's going to stretch a little bit, and I want this very tight. So what I'm going to do is back off about 1/8 of an inch. So I've got a pattern here. Save us a little time. So I've got a pattern. Our circumference here is really right at 4 inches. I'm going to back off to 3 7/8 inches, or about 9.8 centimeters. Length, what do we want? On this, I'm going to go 8 inches. So therefore, my pattern is going to be 3 7/8 by 8 inches, or 9.8 by 20.3 centimeters. That's going to be a nice sized handle, okay? So we've got our pattern. Let's step over to our main table, start cutting some leather. We're going with our lime green simply for visibility. It's your axe, your call. We've got 21 of what, in my opinion, are some of the prettiest colors of suede in the business. Now, with suede, we technically do have a face and a backing, and it's usually pretty easy to figure out. Typically, we'll have a foot stamp on the back side of our suede. So what we're going to do is use a pen, make this very easy. But because of that, what I'm going to do is mark and cut from the back side. But also, let's double check. Yeah, let's make sure we're cutting into good leather, and we are. Yeah, suede's like a vacuum. It picks up everything. But let's lay this in, and I'm going to mark and cut this panel. Okay, that looks good. Now, on our handle, right here, there's just no good way to secure those corners down, and I don't want that to dog ear over time. So let's just clip our 4 corners. Okay, that looks good. Let's set that aside. Now, we're going to drop in ribs or bands. We're going 8 inches, and I'm going to drop these in at every 1 inch, or 1 inch increments. So I'm going to need 6 bands. Now, I'm not going to take these all the way around. I'm just going to go about 3/4 of the distance. So we're at 4 inches. Well, let's back those off to 3 inches long by about 1/4 inch wide, or maybe 7.6 centimeters long. So let's take some scrap for that. These do not have to be pretty by any means. And there are 6. Okay, so let's square these. There we go. Let's come in right at 1/2 the distance, about 1.5 inches. Let's make a mark there. Now let's trim these at 3 inches. Well, there we go. We've got our bands. They came out of scrap. So now let's take our pattern and our panel, jump over to our punch table, drop in our chisel line. The reason I say let's bring our pattern with us, in this situation, it's not really an issue. The problem is that if we've got an axe handle, it's going to be a little bit shorter, more square than rectangular. I can't tell you how many times I've dropped my chisel line on the wrong side. Then I wrap that around my handle and it's 2 inches too long. Very frustrating. But again, right here, not really the issue. Now, on suede, a groover, not going to be a big help to us. Our wing divider is slightly more help. But let's set this at 1/8 of an inch and let's just drag this down our edge. Okay, there we go. So I can see that enough. We just need that there long enough to get our chisel line straight. Let's do the same thing on the other side. Good. Okay, now when we lay in our chisel, our holes have to be parallel and we need the same number of holes. If we don't, what can happen is it can start to twist on us. We don't want that. So let's go with an 1/8 inch, our 1/8 inch flats, my favorite chisel. But in this situation, we're going to go through a hole, across some wood, and through a hole. I don't want to try to have to fish for the hole on that other side. So we're going to go with a little bit larger hole, say than a diamond point. So let's start right here. On this side, I'm going to take my first tine and I'm going to butt that against the edge of my leather. I'm going to drop that in my mark, my wing divider line, and let's drop that in. Let's do the same thing on this side. Okay, now first tine, last hole. Let's do 2 sets on this line and this line. Okay, let's check, because again, we want these parallel, and we can correct this if they're not. But let's look at this. Let's square across our top. Almost perfect, absolutely. Now, if I'm a little short on this, all I have to do is when I drop my tine in, let's push this way just a little bit. Do it a second time, and we'll catch up in no time. But it looks like we're good where we are. And our last 6 tine. Let's double check again, see where we are. Again, almost perfect, nice. Now on this last portion, let's see if we can get, and yes we can. So I'm going to go first tine, last hole with my 4 chisel. So that's going to put in 3 additional holes. Very nice. And there we go. That looks pretty good. Now on a larger panel, if we need these holes to line up, a square will work, but it's a little bit difficult. What we can always do is count holes. Now that sounds extremely tedious. Actually, it's really not. Let's take our 6 tine. All we have to do is 6, 12, 18, and 24. So I just counted 24 holes in about 1.5 seconds. So if we have to go that route, we can certainly do it. We just want to make sure we've got the same amount of holes. All right, let's jump back to our main table, take our next step. To save us a little time, I've dropped in some simple painter's tape. We're just going to use this as a guide, but it's going to do a couple of things. Show us where to drop in our handle, obviously, but also we're going to sand our finish down. We don't have to, and we'll talk about that. But also, this is going to show me exactly where I need my glue. So right here, I've come in 3/4 of an inch. That gives me room for a hole if I want to drop in a lanyard. And then I've got 8 inches up to the bottom side of that tape. Now, sanding. If you don't want to tear up your axe handle, you don't have to. This is suede. It's going to grip. In fact, that's why we're using it. But all told, no matter how tight we get that, With an axe, it's eventually going to work its way out. Now say a walking stick, probably not an issue, but I need this to stick and to stay there. So with our sandpaper, this is a 220, something light. We don't really have to sand this down heavily. We just need to rough it up enough to where it's going to take the contact cement. So let's sand all the way around between our tape. Well, that's absolutely beautiful wood, and I hate to cover it up. You know what? It's for a good reason. Now, typically, we would sew down the inside spine. So therefore, our stitch line would be on the same side as our edge. That's going to put that under our fingers. We're going to reverse that. Let's drop in our stitch line up here. That's going to be smooth on our palm. Then we'll drop our bands in down here. Those are going to fit right in our fingers. This is going to be an incredibly comfortable axe to use. So let's do this. First step, towards our blade, let's take a Sharpie and a straight edge, and let's just mark in 1-inch increments. There we go. Okay. So what we're going to do, let's add our S18. Now, contact cement, so we need this on both sides. So let's add contact cement to our handle, all the way around, right to the edge of our glue. And on our little pieces of lace, let's add glue to the side opposite of our mark. And if you found that adding glue to these can be a test in patience, yeah, absolutely. But also, if you got glue all over these, that's okay. We're going to get glue all over those. So let's give our glue about 10 minutes to set. We've got some good dry time here, so let's do this. Let's take our axe, blade up, put that on the edge of our table, and we're going to take our bands. We've got a mark on the back, so let's lay that in right on the spine. We don't have to get this perfect. 1/8 of an inch either side, no one will ever see that. But let's lay that in and wrap that around. There we go. Now, think of all the possibilities here. We're just going with bands. We could do all kinds of decorations, say a crisscross back and forth, or actually little shapes, diamonds or circles, all kinds of ways we can go with this. But let's lay in the balance of these the same way. And you know what? I miscounted. I need 7 and not 6. Well, let's flip this over and just bring those around. Good, so we've got a little room in there. We're going to drop our stitch line right there. So let's lay those in. Okay, and now I'm going to cut one more, add some glue to that. And there we are, our wayward little piece of lace. So let's drop this last piece in. There we go. Now we're on track. Let's flip that around. So actually, not difficult at all. In fact, that looks pretty cool itself. Okay, our next step. We're going to add glue to the top of our lace. And over here, on our main body, let's make it easy to line this up. So what we want to do, let's find our center mark. Mark it on the top and the bottom. Now, I do want to make sure that I am on my back side. I notice I've got a little ink there. That's what we're looking for. So, on either side of this, let's come out, my axe, it's right about 1 inch across. So let's come out a 1/2 inch on either side. And down here, same thing. Good, let's draw these lines in. Now, that's going to help us line this up because now all we'll have to do is drop this between those two lines. It's going to be a perfect meet on our spine. Okay, so over here, let's add contact cement to this, but I'm going to leave about 1/4 of an inch either side without glue. Now on our ends, away from our stitch line or our chisel line, Let's make sure we get that right to the edge. Okay, let's give that about 10 minutes dry time, and we will glue this on to our axe. We've had some good dry time. Now 2 points right up front. With the S18, it's contact cement. So we need good ventilation with this. I got a good cross breeze in my shop. But secondly, if this whole thing goes south on us, deglazer will strip off every bit of that glue and we can go right back to raw wood. So that's there. That's some help if we need it. Well, hopefully we won't on this one. So let's take this, our spine, again, our stitch line. It's going to be right up our back. So let's lay this down. Drop that right on the edge of our glue or our tape. There we go, and I can see on both sides I've got lines, so this should line up very nicely. So let's press that down. Now let's flip this, and with our hands, let's work this down. There we go, pressing in around those spine, or the lace. And we're starting to work this down. Well, actually, those ribs, that's starting to look good. They're standing out. So let's bring this around, and I want to stretch this just a little bit. I want to pull on this pretty hard so we've got a good even meet along our center. And if we're a little short, that's okay. We're actually aiming for that. Okay, well that looks actually pretty good. Let's step over to our pattern table, drop in a stitch line. When we sew our axe handle, there's all kinds of ways we can secure this to our table. But all told, we're just sewing 8 inches, and it's a straight 8. Nothing difficult about it. So I'm just going to let the axe head hang off, and I'm going to press that with my leg. And also, too, we can sit down, and this fits right between our legs. Super easy to do. Now, on our needles, John James number 18. It's my favorite needle. But we're going to jump up to the 1 millimeter on our Ritza thread. Let's get a good thick thread going here. And with Ritza, we've got some beautiful colors. Now, I said we're going to go with our saddler stitch. All kinds of stitches we can use here. Say a baseball stitch or just a simple crossover. The problem is that half or more of the thread is going to be showing. Say we do an X pattern on this. It's going to look good. The problem is that's going to snag or catch on something and it's going to fail on us. With a saddler stitch, the only thread that's going to be exposed is right between our holes. So on our first hole, saddler stitch, 1 needle, first hole, let's bring this through. Let's equalize this out. Now I'm going 4 times my length on my thread. If I can pick that up, there we go. So let's equalize that out. Now let's go 1 more because I want to double loop right here at the end. And let's pull that in good and tight. There we go. We're going to get a good meet on that. Now from here on, what we can do is we're going across some wood here. It's not really difficult, but what we can do is let's pull 1 thread through. Let's pull that towards us. That opens up that hole. So I'm not going to split a thread. There we go, and let's draw that down good and tight. Let's do 1 more. And draw down good and tight. There we go. We're getting a good meet there. What we'll do is we'll hammer this down. It's going to be nice and flat. It's going to look good and feel good. Okay, so I'm going to sew the balance of this. Good. We've got a good meet along there. We're going to hammer that down, make that a little more smooth. But here's a good point. In my opinion, suede never sews as clean as something with a top grain. Something that's got a solid surface. But in this situation, not the point. So now that we get down to our end, let's bring 1 needle through, pull that back, bring the 2nd needle through. Now we're not going to crank down on this just yet. Let's come across. I'm going to go through this side and this side only. And the same on this side. Now let's crank down on that. Straighten that out a little bit. Okay, let's tie our square knot. So right over left, circle around. Draw that down in. Good. Trying to find my knife. Make sure I've got that left over right. Let's draw that down in. And now let's really crank down on that. Good. That stitch is there to stay and it looks good. So let's clip this off. How nice is that? Good meat. Let's take our tape off, then we're going to jump over to our punch table. And our last step, we're going to hammer this down. Get these two edges to meet. We can absolutely go with a mallet if we want to, but if we've got a good tack hammer, let's go this route. So let's just hammer that down. We've got a good meat there. That is going to feel comfortable in our hands. You know what? That is some great grip. This axe is going to be the envy of every camper we camp with, and the first thing they're going to say is, hey, can you make me one? And we're going to say, absolutely. We'd be happy to. We are knocking out problem after problem. Durability, visibility, comfort. But here's one big point. To me, a lot of hatchet handles are simply too small. And I don't really have a large hand. Yet another problem solved. I hope your axe handle lasts from here on out. Now, part two. We talked about doing a Viking throwing axe. Let's add a decorative handle. Well, in all honesty, I think the route we need to go, let's go with the horseman's axe. That's going to look good, and I can't wait to start on that one. I hope this is good information for you. Good luck with your projects.